Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chasing a Murder. And today we are on part 166 of The Life Beyond the Grave, the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell story. Before we get started, I would like for you guys to take a moment just to push like. Do that right now so you don't forget. And I would like to remind you, you can subscribe. You can also share these videos if you like them. I would appreciate it so much. So, where did we leave off? We left off with Lori Vallow in Rexburg. Tylee Ryan's been murdered, and now they're planning JJ's. Melanie Gibb is in Rexburg. So Melanie Gibb, who was closest to Lori October 2018 through around August of 2019, says that when Lori began moving around, she didn't see Lori as much. Rexburg is where Chad claimed the City of Light would be built. And Lori said before she moved there that she would have to gain her own confirmation from the heavens to confirm that was true. And so she did, and that's why she's in Rexburg. We learned that Lori and Chad both pushed this idea that Rexburg was the place to be on Zulema, Melanie Gibb, Melanie Boudreaux, and several others. But a few of their most loyal and high-ranking members of this group would push back on moving to Rexburg. Even so, they continue to support their ideas and, strange ideas and teachings and attend castings. And I'm sure Melanie Gibb and all of them are wondering, why is it people are so hard on them? Well, let's go back and think about the fact that they continue to support Lori even after zombies die. Zombies like Charles, Tylee Ryan, and soon others. Whether or not they knew Tylee was gone, they did know Charles was gone. And they'll know that Tammy Daybell is gone in the future. Moving into September 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20, Melanie Gibb was told over the phone that JJ was a zombie, and this right before she arrived at Rexburg. Melanie's staying at Lori's townhome. She claims that she visited Lori because she wanted to attend an event sponsored by the Universal Model, a Mormon event. David Warwick, Melanie Gibb's boyfriend at the time, an LDS visionary, was on his way to Lori Vallow's townhome to stay with Melanie Gibb and attend that event. Looking back a bit, Melanie said that she truly believed that these people were possessed, at least to some level. What does that mean? Looking even further in the past, remembering when Charles Vallow was killed, remember Melanie Gibb was at Lori's home the day before Charles was killed. According to Melanie, Lori told her that she needed to leave. And guys, I wanted to mention this. Perhaps Melanie Gibb may be a big witness in the upcoming Charles Vallow trial. So we may learn a lot more about what Melanie Gibb knows as that trial takes place. What we notice is that Melanie seems to be in the middle of everything chaotic and evil happening around Lori. The majority of people following this case believe that she played a bigger role in the deaths of this case, especially since she knew if they performed a successful casting, then the bodies expire. But she wouldn't only admit this to prosecutors. She actually emphasized naturally expire. I'm not certain how a casting, a prayer, wishing them to die, so that's what they're saying, is even natural. Melanie admits that she don't believe 100% in the casting, so why would she believe castings could be so powerful that they could expire a body after they cast out a demon? Melanie claims that she had no idea there would be physical harm or violence to the person possessed by the demon. But Melanie seeing Charles died, while this first one she could have questioned and said, well, wow, what a coincidence, Maybe Charles was violent, maybe this was self-defense. But how many of these mishaps can happen before you finally start thinking, hey, something's wrong? Melanie Gibb said that Lori was predicting dates of things that would come, things that would happen, but she said none of those dates really took place and none of them come true.
Good opportunity for me to share what I did know. And because of that knowledge, people have an opportunity to decide if those things are true or not. But as I said before, if it leads to death, it doesn't sound like it's true.
And you had told me that Chad and Lori were always saying things that weren't coming to pass.
Right.
They were always saying kind of weird, bizarre things.
Exactly.
So when they started to talk about zombies, you weren't really thinking anything more of it.
No, because they never talked about killing anyone. They would always talk about praying and hoping that the spirits would leave the bodies. And so that was all that they did, is always prayed about. But she was also predicting dates, as we have all heard, about things that were going to happen, or somebody was supposed to die on this day. And they just never happened through time. It seemed like there was a prediction about something every month, every week, and they didn't happen. And so I didn't get the sense that any of her things that she said were happening when they were going to happen, or, I didn't take a lot of it too seriously. I hope that can understand a little bit more about how I was interpreting that.
Melanie Gibb also said that she wasn't much into drama or gossip. In an interview with Nate Eaton, she shares her self-proclaimed personality with us.
I am feeling for their journey. Getting up here and speaking, I have no desire to say things about people that's hurtful. It's just truthful. But that's not my personality to gossip. So this is very uncomfortable for me. I do care about those kids. I know Tammy does.
Those of us that followed this case from the beginning know that Melanie's personality at the beginning was quite questionable. She even called a few friends. One goes by the name of Sherry, that did an interview with True Hidden Crime, gossiping her little heart out.
She didn't like anybody. And so, anyway, they shoot up.
You sensed that she had the emotion that she was expressing didn't seem equivalent to what she was telling you.
Yeah. She was apathetic, is that the word? That she had no feeling about it?
So, he's a handful. And so, plus it's not her kid anyway, right? And so...
It's not her kid because she adopted him, right?
Right, she adopted him from Kay's family.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Oh.
As a baby. She had him as a baby. Yeah, he was a drug baby, and so they adopted him as a baby. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And she was a really good mom to him. She was. She was really patient with him and very loving. I saw her. She's very loving to him.
Wow.
And, she was, hands down, she was a great mom, very patient with that kid.
It's like ridiculous. And it was, I felt like I was an insider with her, and like she was saying like, oh, we messed up here, we messed up there. It was crazy because.
And again, this is your first conversation ever with her.
Yeah.
That would be shocking. I just want to say that would absolutely be shocking.
Yeah.
So I go up to visit her, and I see that Tylee is not there, and I said, hey, Tylee's, I mentioned again, like, Tylee went to BYU, and she goes, yeah, but she gave me this really creepy look.
Mm.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was like, yes, she's dead, really, and that kind of look.
Yeah.
But then, almost that kind of look, but then I didn't know what to think about it at the time. I was like, oh.
So the Melanie that you hear here is a totally different toned down version of what you see when she's speaking with Nate Eaton or testifying. It's easy to hear in her voice that she's enjoying telling people the story and getting the attention from her connection on it. In fact, she's playing it down. She shows no remorse or empathy. This is something that really raised red flags for many people, even within the Mormon society, within the group. Melanie's biggest concern was whether or not people would judge her or how they see her. When Charles was shot, supposedly the rumor is Melanie Gibb was living with Lori.
Are you sure you're supposed to be doing this? Oh, yeah. Melanie, God's telling me exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Charles was upset because she just tried to destroy his life. She told him he was out of town when she found out, and he was in another state. And when she flew back home, she took his truck and hid it, took all the keys and took them from him, emptied all his clothes in the house. I mean, tried to destroy his work, his life, everything.
Goodness.
And I was like, hey, do you think that's a bit extreme? Like, are you sure you're supposed to do that? She goes, Melanie, the Spirit is telling me exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, what am I to say, So
Sherry mentions that she believes that Melanie's pretending that she wasn't any part of this, because we know that Melanie helped Lori destroy Charles. There's a lot of inconsistencies with stories or her idea of what happened, depending on who she's speaking with. So how can we believe anything that comes out of Melanie's mouth, especially if we go back and listen to the testimony where John Pryor backs Melanie into the corner and catching her flat out lying and calling people that were supposed to be friends of hers that was connected to them. They were actually over preparing the people. That would be Nancy James and Michael James. She had emailed Lori saying that they were dark. Melanie Gibb blatantly says she doesn't recollect that at all. Melanie Gibb tried to say that she had nothing to do with the rankings of light and dark. Listen to this testimony, and you share your thoughts in the comments below.
That you never discussed dark and light, or super dark, or different levels of dark and light. Is that right?
I discussed it at times with probably people in the inner circle, but I didn't go around teaching it that I can recall.
I didn't ask about teaching. I said that you had discussions with people about light and dark then, right?
Right.
So that's not a term that's not unfamiliar to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when you say the inner circle, does that include Mike James?
No.
Okay. So you never had a discussion with Mike James about super dark and dark. Is that right?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. Would it refresh your recollection that on November 12th of 2019, you contacted Lori Vallow complaining about Mike James and someone named Nancy being super dark? Does that refresh your recollection?
I don't recall that.
Okay. And if I were to show that to you, would that help you refresh your recollection?
It doesn't matter to me. Regardless, I just don't recall it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Bailiff, could you?
Now we'll go over this more in November. I just wanted to show you. This is just one of the examples where Melanie Gibb is caught lying. I'm allowed for a lot of room to give Melanie Gibb the benefit of the doubt that she is this good person with a good heart and intentions, but the evidence doesn't show that. Melanie lying with no mercy or empathy is a red flag. Not remembering how Melanie asked about Tylee's whereabouts when she arrived in Rexburg. The response that she got from Lori, she said to Sherry, that was scary. But here's what she testified.
They had a difficult relationship. And they didn't necessarily get along very well.
And what about Lori and JJ?
I could tell she had a lot of affection for him. But he was autistic, and he seemed to be very busy for her.
The actions with the kids for Lori and her true intentions are very confusing, aren't they?
We talked a little bit about, you met Lori in October of 2018, and initially, how often did you two have contact?
In the beginning, it was almost daily, with the exception probably of a day or two a week, and that was probably for maybe about a month or two.
Do you recall approximately when the contact wasn't as frequent, or what was going on at that time?
Yes, it was after January when she started to move around. She moved multiple times, so I couldn't keep in contact with her. But yes.
And then with regard to the multiple probations, as you learned more about that, what did Lori share with you regarding multiple probations?
That people lived multiple times. And then she would find out, she would try to find out like when that was.
And was there some kind of a rating system or a system to easily identify if someone was light or dark or what level they were?
She would ask him and he would somehow find out, and he would find out, how many times they've been on this planet or any other planets, I guess. And he would just find that out by asking questions the way he did. And then she would share it with us.
And the he you're referring to, is that Chad?
Yes.
At some point, were people designated with a number and then either an L or a D?
Correct.
Where would those designations originate?
From Chad.
And if someone was designated a D, did that stand for dark?
Correct.
And the L was for light?
Correct.
At some point, did Lori also share with you that she believed she had a mission here on Earth?
Yes.
What did she share with you she believed her mission to be?
She felt that it was her mission to gather women to the 144,000, and that she would be the leader of it. At some point, she thought she was going to lead that.
And when we talk about the 144,000, what's that in reference to? Could you explain a little bit?
Yes, it's a biblical explanation for a certain amount of people that would go out and gather Israel in the last days and have the power and authority to do that.
Where Melanie says Lori gets this idea is really important here, so listen closely.
So gathering people in the end times.
Correct.
Do you know where Lori got the idea or the belief that she was meant to be one of the leaders or help gather?
I think she got it from herself.
Melanie said that Lori presented this idea to Chad, and Chad Daybell more than willingly went along with what Lori said she was. Something we learn is that Lori was talking about people who were light and dark, and people that would talk to her about this pretty much was everyone that's been in that group, including Serena, Nicole, Melanie Boudreau, and so on. Melanie Gibb ends up deeming the very person that included her and even made her a leader of an area with preparing the people dark. John Pryor brings this up on trial. I think Melanie Gibb was very uncomfortable, and she flat out lied over and over and over again.
So you don't recall talking about Mike James and asking for a favor and mentioning that someone named Nancy is super dark, but obviously there was that conversation, right?
According to that text, but I don't recall that text.
Okay. And talking about being violent and bad language.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. You're not denying that this text exists, are you?
No, I just don't recall it.
You just don't recall talking about super dark. So when you gave your testimony that you never really preached or talked about super dark or super light or anything like that, is that still accurate?
I don't recall talking to people outside of the inner circle about that.
Okay, well, that's Mike James, and you just told me Mike James is not in the inner circle.
He's not.
So that's somebody you were talking to Lori about, and it was based on a discussion about light and dark, right?
Right.
So you did talk outside your inner circle about this, didn't you?
Incorrect.
Incorrect? Well, Mike James isn't in your inner circle.
No.
Mike James is unloading on me and says Nancy is super dark. So are you suggesting that, it was just Mike James saying the super dark and you were just listening? Is that what you're saying?
I don't recall how I felt at that time or what he was saying context. I just have no memory of that. I'm sorry.
Okay, and your lack of memory is
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative. These have been asked and answered, and this is a narrative.
This last question was not a question. It was argumentative. It's sustained.
Judge, and I think I'm going to move on. Okay?
Sure.
John Pryor was trying to point out the fact that they were judging people light and dark outside of the circle, that they weren't just doing it inside the circle. Melanie Gibb wasn't getting that. And also, she was in complete denial, and she was not happy with the fact that email come out and was now public. You got to remember that Michael James and Nancy James was basically her boss. They were the ones running the show when it come to the conferences you hear about called Preparing the People. So Melanie's out there calling people super dark. And she knows by this time what that means, because this, I believe, will happen in November. Charles is gone. Tylee and JJ's missing. Tammy dies. Yeah. Preparing the People sponsored dream and vision classes and basically feeding the monster. So when they say that Preparing the People were not, pushing these ideas, well, they were. The biggest no-no in the church was to push your dreams and visions to the public and share it as revelation. Melanie Gibb says that she believes that Chad's the reason for JJ being a zombie, but do we believe that? Share it in comments.
Whatever, he was the one that she would call and ask those questions. She said she wasn't very good at getting the answers.
Do you think Chad told her that JJ had become a zombie?
I think so, yeah.
So she tells you all these things. You're kind of like, he looks normal to me. Looks like normal JJ.
Yeah.
Did it worry you at all that, oh no, look what happened when Charles became a zombie? Something might happen to him?
I didn't think she would do that because that's her boy, We had actually a talking about this. She goes, well, I need to, it's time for JJ to, I don't know how she worded it, but it was something to the effect, it's time for, he's in the way of our mission. So we need to send him to Kay's house. That was kind of like the idea, is what can we do? And so we talked about Kay, and we talked about some of her family members that could actually take him on. And we talked about, what that conversation would be like with Kay. And she wasn't sure if Kay would really receive him. And so we talked about just different ideas about, him going there. And so that was the plan that I knew of, is he's going to Kay's house. She told me that. I know that from what I saw in one of the video clippings, that she also told a neighbor that as well. And so that's what I believe was going to happen to him. So I left thinking that that's where he was going, was Kay's, for sure. I didn't doubt that.
So as her friend, you're saying, okay, he's a zombie. He's in the way of your mission. She said that. So you guys came up with a plan of, why don't we let Kay take care of him, or someone in Kay's family? Yeah. Had you dealt with Kay before?
I met her briefly, but I didn't interact with her.
Okay.
It was like, hi, how are you? I'm Melanie, and that was about it.
So even though Lori had an issue with Kay, she was willing, that day at least, to say, yeah, we'll send JJ to Kay.
Correct.
You leave Rexburg.
That's right.
Thinking JJ's going to go to Kay's house.
That's right.
You never saw Tylee the whole weekend.
Correct.
Because she was at college, allegedly. What happens from there?
So Melanie's there at Lori's for that weekend. She says there's a point where they talk about JJ being a zombie, and then there also is a point where they talk about sending JJ to Kay. That doesn't make sense to me at all. At the same time, Melanie's saying that JJ's in the way of her mission. So how does this story really go? Well, Melanie knows, but she's kind of manipulated all these words to fit a narrative. I think most of us believe also that there's a lot to the story that's missing, that she's leaving out. And the fact that she's leaving that out doesn't make her look too good. Before they murdered Tylee, back when Lori and Tylee were in Hawaii, That was in February 2019. She mentioned that her mother looked like a drug dealer because of all the burner phones she had. It's around this time that you start seeing Chad and Alex purchase burner phones as well. According to Agent Hart, it seemed that Chad had several women that he spoke to or texted through phones. A name I want to mention is Audrey. Make sure you remember that name. We have talked a little bit about her earlier, and we didn't go that much into who she is. Agent Hart says he goes through Lori's iCloud, password 5 Kids Forever. He finds lots of videos of Lori singing and spending time with her children. Now remember, Lori at the time was not into leading the 144,000. At the time, she was wanting to be a family example through her church, and she was leading that. So I understand Lori as at that time, that's the picture she wanted to represent. But now that's changed. Now, the blessings that Chad is giving, according to Agent Hart, Chad did not have the authority to perform these blessings. Chad was basically a ward clerk, not the patriarch. Something else that's quite important is the fact that Hart mentioned that the fact that JJ, Tylee, and Tammy being dark, they never found an objection from neither Lori or Chad about that. Now remember, I've been a little hard on ward leaders and bishops within the church, but there were a few bishops that were trying their best to help out Charles. But then you had the bishop that was kind of helping out Lori. Hart says there were 2 messages about the divorce between Lori and Charles. And one was from Lori's bishop saying that Charles was going to serve Lori with divorce papers. Around this time, Hart says that there's a lot of messages about day-to-day activities of JJ and Tylee prior to September 2019, but after September 8th, there's no evidence of Tylee on the iCloud. Hart also says that they do discover later Kay Woodcock had messaged Lori multiple times begging to FaceTime JJ or to bring JJ to his father's memorial service. He also found several messages of planning for the future. All right, guys, we're going to pause right here. On the next part of the series, we're going to go into some very interesting information on Chad Daybell, his belief system and death experience, 2006 to 2007, and his brother-in-law gives us a glimpse into how his experience might have kind of evolved with a few lies. This is kind of similar to Lori. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to push like, subscribe. Don't forget to share these girls' faces like people like Summer Wells. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.